we are getting into my top 30 albums of 2024. Vince Staples' music can sometimes be underrated because it's often a little understated. His themes and concepts are brutally authentic, he always packs a cold sense of humor, and he's got as many slow burners and down-tempo gems as he has bangers, even if his early career featured more of the latter. This Dark Times album, to me, is probably one of his 3 best projects. His lyrics are really good, but he's not a lyrical show-off. His narratives are visceral, and his songs kind of take you to the areas in Long Beach that he's referencing. I was actually once about to buy a condo near Ramona Park. But yeah, I really appreciate Vince Staples' thoughtful and entertaining music. Dark Times is at number 30. Mannequin P's 4th album, I Got Heaven, is a relentless collection of noisy, punk rock and roll bangers. Track over track, its quality becomes undeniable. Pretty enthralling. It's 29 on my list. J. Cole's Might Delete Later might be the most forgotten major rap album of 2024 because it came right at the beginning of the epic Kendrick Lamar versus Drake rap battle, which Cole was also a part of, before he withdrew shortly after that album's release. The 2024 rap consciousness almost has a pre-COVID, post-COVID dynamic to where it seems like everything involving these battle-involved artists, from Drake and Kendrick to Cole, Future, Metro Boomin, and Rick Ross, kind of gets buried if it happened just before Drake versus Kendrick got really heated. I think Might Delete Later is a victim of that. But man, there's some excellent work here. It's gotten lost in the shuffle, but I've still got it at 28, and I can't wait for his upcoming album, The Fall Off. The elusive Makhami, the Haitian-American Griselda Records affiliate from New Jersey, has one of the most interesting marketing strategies as a rap artist. He rarely performs live, he hardly reveals his real face and birth name, and he makes a lot of unusual literary references in his sophisticated and street-smart lyrics. He's got a super prolific catalog over the past 7 years, with EPs that date back 12 years. This new Rich as Haitian might have been his most mainstream promoted and media covered album outside of maybe Pray for Haiti, and the excellent production has a West Indian flair to it while maintaining elements of rugged boom bap, which all blends well with his train of thought rhymes and his most def Yassine Bey-like vocal timbre. I'm putting Rich as Haitian at 27. Sturgill Simpson released an album under an alter ego, Johnny Blue Skies, and although he's had some serious vocal injuries and surgery over the past few years, one of alt country's most extraordinary voices delivers big both vocally and songwriting wise on this latest album, Passage du Désir. I've got it at 26. Jordy Greep, formerly of the prog rock band Black Midi, dropped one of the strangest albums of the year. The production always has you on edge, and his lyrics are even weirder. Don't get me wrong, the writing is very witty and intelligent, but Greep creeps into some of the darkest corners of the mind and articulates his thoughts in such jarring ways. This album and its songs take so many twists and turns. It won't be for everyone. Prog rock usually isn't, but if you're up for the challenge, you'll be rewarded. Jordy Greep's The New Sound comes in at 25. LL Cool J has no business making an album this damn good in 2024. LL Cool J's debut album was 1986, and it's been 11 years since his last album. But this album vastly exceeded my expectations. How? Much of it is because Q-Tip of A Tribe Called Quest produced the whole thing, and you could tell he put a lot of thought into how he was gonna freak this LL album. Also, there are some features on this album, good ones, but LL doesn't use other artists' contributions as a crutch. He's still sick enough of an MC to carry this thing. Very impressed with this LL album, The Force, and I've got it at 24. Yeah, I didn't expect this. Taper. I knew nothing about this artist going in, and actually still know very little. All I know is I was listening to this British indie folk art pop band's debut album with a long name, we'll just call it The Pilgrim, on Spotify, and I found myself hitting like, song after song after song. This album was a real surprise. I've got it at 23. At 22, Eminem's The Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace. Some people refuse to like any Eminem music after 2002's The Eminem Show, and I do think some of his songs and albums since then have been pretty hit or miss, but lyrically, he's just further been distancing himself from the pack. Seriously, Eminem is just on another galaxy, lyrically, and he has been for a long time. This album couples that insane ultra lyricism with a fun alter ego challenging concept that he plays with and explores throughout the album. I've got Eminem's latest at 22. At number 21, Nilüfer Yanya, My Method Actor. Nilüfer Yanya's Miss Universe debut album's track 1 caught my attention to where I reached out to her people and was given permission to shoot her show at the Lodge Room in LA, and actually met her after the show and took a couple pictures, and she signed my vinyl. She's the type to hang at her own merch booth, which is dope. 2 albums later, her stock continues to rise, and I think My Method Actor is her best from beginning to end, and I like those first 2 albums a lot. She's really carving out and refining her own flavor of indie pop and rock. Almost sounds a little like a female King Cruel to me. Brooding vocal style too, but easier to listen to. I've got Nilüfer Yanya at 21. Now let's get into numbers 20 through 11 for the best albums of 2024. Charli XCX made 2024 a brat summer. The half-organic marketing of this album was great, and she even released a remix, Brat. But yeah, this has her nominated in several Grammy categories this year. And I've long viewed Charli XCX as being one of the most underrated pop artists, since probably her Charli album in 2019. That one did it for me, and she's been super consistent since. But Brat has taken her career and reputation to a different level. Good for Charli. I've got Brat at 20. The Last Dinner Party is a Baroque pop indie art rock band from London who really impressed me with this debut album, Prelude to Ecstasy, which I thought should have been Grammy nominated for Best Alternative Music Album, but it wasn't. They could have also been nominated for Best New Artist. But this Prelude to Ecstasy album is pretty captivating. Powerful performances. I've got it at 19. My homie recommended this cool duo, the Heavy Heavies album, One of a Kind. And this thing is just brimming with 70s pop and soft rock. The performances are pretty high energy, but very pleasant and easy to listen to. This is the Heavy Heavies' second album, and I haven't gone back and checked out their first album yet, but I've got this one at number 18. Gillian Welch's Woodland is named after the Nashville studio that it was recorded in. Gillian Welch is one of the very best, and maybe one of the most underrated, folk and bluegrass artists. She doesn't drop a ton of albums, but when she does, the results are beautiful. This collab with guitarist, songwriter, producer David Rawlings is no exception. I enjoyed this thing from front to back, so I'm putting Woodland at 17. Cindy Lee's Diamond Jubilee is one of the most enigmatic releases of the year. It wasn't released on streaming services. You couldn't purchase a hard copy of the album. No vinyl, no CD. It was just a YouTube link to the entire album. The album's over 2 hours long, and it initially didn't even come with a track list, which encourages a total playthrough experience. This kind of sparked a cult following of the album, and then you started seeing more and more favorable reviews, to where it's astonishingly Pitchfork's #1 album of 2024. Yeah, crazy. This is very psychedelic. The production features a lot of washed out and blurred sounds, but I don't know if I would call it lo-fi. The buzzword in recent years for this type of thing is hypnagogic pop. But yeah, I've had to listen to this album in chunks and fully enjoy certain sections of it. It feels like one very long dream that you end up remembering bits and pieces of. I think time will tell how good this album really is or isn't. But right now, I've got Cindy Lee's Diamond Jubilee at 16. Lupe Fiasco's Samurai is at number 15. It was a lean but mean album from one of rap's strongest and most creative lyricists. Lupe's got a complicated reputation, with everything from haters to former fans who've been estranged to still devoted fans who see him as one of the absolute GOATs. But this album is a strong addition to his catalog. I feel like this is doing for Lupe what the Kanye-produced Daytona did for Pusha T, especially when you consider the album's short runtime. Billie Eilish's Hit Me Hard and Soft actually grew on me over 3 listens. It definitely has more club material than her other 2, but the dark and moody ballads are still outstanding where they do appear. Some really good songwriting too. I'm putting this at 14. At 13, this is Lorelei with Box for Buddy, Box for Star. This is Lorelei is a moniker for Nate Amon, one half of the experimental, indie, art pop, synth pop duo Water From Your Eyes, and he delivered this surprisingly good solo project, very different from his group sound. This is much poppier and less electronic reliant. It has almost no skippable tracks. Big surprise for me. And at number 12, Adrian Lenker with Bright Future. This is an intimate, often somber listen. It's not as fully produced instrumentally as her Big Thief albums, and I'm not sure yet if I like it more than her Songs album from 2020, but her folky singer-songwriting is consistently good throughout this album. I've got it at 12. This was Father John Misty's first album, which had songwriting that I would consider special since his 2017 classic, Pure Comedy. This one is certainly my favorite Father John Misty album since Pure Comedy, and that's not to knock God's Favorite Customer or Chloe in the Next 20th Century. Both of those albums had some good high points, but this Mahash Mashana album is concise with only 8 pretty long songs without one miss as I see it. At least after my first 3 listens, Father John Misty was able to vary up his sound and reintroduces himself as one of the best and most prescient singer-songwriters of the generation. That album opener was also epic. Felt like it could be an album opener and closer. But I've got Mahash Mashana at number 11. We are now down to my top 10 albums of 2024. Let's go. Jack White's No Name album might be my favorite of his since the White Stripes days, and that's no knock on Blunderbuss or anything that followed. My brother listened to this one before I did, and I was surprised by how much he said he enjoyed it. I then gave it a listen, and yeah, this is some pull no punches rock and roll. Sick riffs, some great lyrical phrasing. This thing is full of rock bangers. I'm putting Jack White's No Name at number 10. Kendrick Lamar dropped the Shake Up the Rap World surprise album GNX in the wake of his epic battle with Drake, where he emerged victorious. This album was great in that it shifted the focus off the battle and back onto how amazing a visionary artist Kendrick can be. This was also his most West Coast sounding album since Good Kid, Mad City. I expect this to be at least nominated for Album of the Year in next year's Grammys. I've got Kendrick's GNX at 9. At 8, we've got Laura Marling's Patterns in Repeat. Laura Marling's developing an excellent singer-songwriter discography, and her latest is as touching and emotionally engaging as any of them, and she's got plenty of them. Just check out her album opener, Child of Mine. Maybe it's a function of timing, being that I'm a first-time father with a 3-month-old son, but man, I'm putting Laura Marling's latest at number 8. Waxahachie's Tiger's Blood was probably the biggest breakthrough for my favorite indie rocker turned alt country Americana artist who delivered her 6th album and her second in this countryer style. Katie Crutchfield's scratchy, sometimes emotionally anguished vocals shine. The songwriting is good, and this features perhaps her biggest single to date, Right Back to It, featuring MJ Lenderman. I've got Waxahachie's Tiger's Blood at number 7. At 6, Chromacopia by Tyler the Creator. Tyler's been on a reputation redefining run ever since 2017's Flower Boy, and is now a 2-time Best Rap Album Grammy winner. Chromacopia is unlike even his prior 2 albums, and this had a great Monday release date strategy and marketing campaign that drew even further interest. Track by track, this album is versatile with great lyrics, concepts, production, and of course, Tyler's unapologetic honesty. I think this is my favorite album of his, and I've got it at number 6. At number 5, it's Beyoncé with Cowboy Carter. This is a very long digest, so I wouldn't recommend judging it after just 1 or 2 listens. The genres vary throughout the album, and performance-wise, Beyoncé continues to show why she's one of the very best in the business. Though her cover of the Beatles' Blackbird was the biggest highlight for me, there are several high points on this dynamic country-adjacent pop album. I'm putting Beyoncé's epic Cowboy Carter at number 5. Number 4, Magdalena Bay's second album, Imaginal Disc. This took me a couple listens to really get it, but this album might have the coolest production out of any major album I've heard this year. This was part dreamy, part psychedelic, a little disorienting, but it's still very easy to listen to. Interesting concepts and lyrics, although it's really the production and the melodies that set this apart from the other dreamy indie pop releases this year. Very strong showing for Magdalena Bay. I'd urge you to give it a listen. And if you don't love how it starts, give it until track 5's Death and Romance. I've got this album at number 4. At number 3, Christopher Owens with I Wanna Run Barefoot Through Your Hair. This was an excellent comeback album after his 9-year solo hiatus. One of my favorite artists of the past 15 years, whether we're talking about his music from his former band Girls, rest in peace to Chet J.R. White, or his solo stuff. Owens has had his share of personal turmoil, and his honesty and empathy shine bright all over this emotionally crushing album. This has some great catchy surf rock moments, a lot of emotionally gripping songwriting, but the album's final 2 songs might be what ultimately did it for me, especially the album closer, Do You Need a Friend, which is probably the saddest song of 2024. It could just be emotionally overwhelming. This album is my number 3. Number 2, Vampire Weekend's Only God Was Above Us. Vampire Weekend is always melodically rich, but this might be the closest thing to them achieving that original sound that made their self-titled debut such a sonic standout. They still wear their classical, their Sting and the Police, and their Paul Simon-like influences on their sleeves while maintaining a unique signature style. This album is short and sweet, and they hit those breathtaking cacophonies of earworm melodies several times throughout this album, while featuring some of their sharpest songwriting. I just love that classical keyboard or harpsichord sound in so many of their songs. It feels like an instrumental cheat code. This is probably a top 3, maybe even top 2 Vampire Weekend album for me. I've got it at number 2 this year. Yeah, I'm having a tough time finding a better album, but there is a number 1, and my number 1 album for 2024 is Hooray for the Riff Raff with The Past Is Still Alive. I've been listening to this artist for her past couple releases, and I'm telling you, Alinda Segarra, also known as Hooray for the Riff Raff, is one of the best singer-songwriters in this indie folk space. I've come back and listened to this thing like 4 times now. Song after song after song is so melodic, so profound, and I'm just super impressed every time I jump back in. You know, I might regret putting this so high on the list as time goes by. But as I went through these albums again, I couldn't think of a more rewarding listen from beginning to end. I think that this artist is very underrated, and her narratives paint such vivid pictures. I feel like I'm outdoors visualizing what she's referencing. I'm loving this album, and although it was hard to order the top 3, I came away with Hooray for the Riff Raff's The Past Is Still Alive at number 1. So there you have it. Those are my top 30, or at least my favorite 30 albums of 2024. I'm gonna issue a top 50 list where I just kind of speed read through it, but this is the top 30 with some context. But yeah, let me know what some of your favorite albums are in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love music like I do. I'm Woog. Have a happy holiday.